I have some devastating news and I have some outstanding news. First, the bad stuff. The economy of basically all Western countries is about to collapse rapidly. And when the economy crashes, a lot of freelancers are going to take a major hit to their income. That's if they can keep getting any work at all. Now, for the outstanding news, some freelancers, the freelancers who prepare now, are going to do better than ever before. So in this video, I'm going to show you why the economy is all but sure to collapse in the next couple years, if not the next couple months. And I'll show you why you should be optimistic that your personal income can skyrocket. First, my name is Henry Bingaman. When I started freelancing 16 years ago, it was at the very beginning of the Great Recession, and I was not at all prepared. I really quickly went broke, I ran out my credit cards, and I almost quit to find a real job several times in there. But then I learned the secrets and strategies to make high-income freelancing possible, and I went on to become one of the highest-paid freelancers in my industry. Today, I make videos like these to help freelancers boost their income and enjoy their work more. So why am I so convinced that the economy is about to eat some dirt? Well, it's actually not for political reasons. I know that's the popular topic right now. What we have here is a problem based on history and good old-fashioned math. So historically, we've never had a bull market that's lasted this long. Now, technically, they reset the bull market in 2022, but the turmoil from 2020 to 2022 was because they artificially shut down the world, not because the markets were naturally correcting. What we have right now is really just a continuation of the bull market that's been running since March of 2009. When you get a run that long, historically, there's always a massive crash afterwards. The longer the run, the bigger the crash. So based on that alone, we're way overdue for a truly massive recession. But that's not it. Right now, 63% of Americans say the economy is on the wrong track. Another one, a plurality of Americans say their personal financial situation is getting worse. Only 26% say it's improving. And the official inflation number, which leaves out food, energy, and real estate, by the way, over the past 5 years is 23%. That means every $1,000 you had saved in 2019 is now worth $770, and it's still shrinking. Altogether, the American public has about $18 trillion in debt. Credit card debt alone is over $1.14 trillion. Car debt is over $1.63 trillion, and 2 out of every 3 Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, meaning if they lose their job, they're also at high risk of quickly losing their car, losing their house, and having no access to money at all. Now, call me crazy, but I do not see how you can prop up an economy that's based on consumerism when credit cards are maxed out and people's savings have dried up. Now, that's pretty bad, but it's nothing compared to the mess that the government is in. And by the mess the government's in, I mean the US national debt of $35+ trillion. When you have a national debt growing by $1 trillion every 100 days, which is where we're at, we run into a problem called the debt spiral. A debt spiral happens when a government's debt grows so fast that it becomes impossible to keep up with the interest payments. In the US, we're currently spending $1.6 trillion more than we're bringing in from taxes. Next year, we'll outspend taxes by $1.8 trillion. Now, for reasons that would take up a whole extra video, the government can't raise taxes enough to make up for this deficit. And because it's almost politically impossible to cut the military or Social Security or Medicare or welfare spending, we're not going to get out of our spending problem anytime soon. So it's really pick your poison, inflation or default. Either way, the economy gets wrecked. And not wrecked like the housing crisis in 2007 and 8, wrecked like the Great Depression of 1929 to 1941. So that's the high level why we're screwed overview. But here's why I'm still optimistic about some freelancers doing even better than ever. Now, to illustrate this, let me tell you a little story. This goes all the way back to 1929 in Philadelphia. The hero of our little drama is a man named Charles Darrow. Darrow was a 4-year-old heater and stove salesman. He had a wife, he had 2 kids, and other than that, there was really nothing extra interesting about him. From all appearances, he was as ordinary as any American gets. He probably thought of himself that way. But here's the thing, nobody has to be ordinary. Ordinary just means you do most things the same way that other people do most things. That also means that as soon as you stop doing things the same way other people do, you stop being ordinary. Now, since this story starts in 1929, you can probably guess what's going to happen next. We get October 29th, the stock market has its biggest ever one-day meltdown at the time, and that kicked off what we now call the Great Depression. So, like millions of other Americans, Darrow lost his job. Now, you've probably heard the numbers from the Great Depression. 9,000 banks failed, $128 billion of normal Americans' money just vanished into thin air. That's $2.3 trillion in today's money. Unemployment steadily rose until it peaked at 25%. So just imagine 1 out of every 4 Americans being out of work, losing their housing, unable to earn enough money to feed their kids without charity. And these aren't strangers, right? These are your friends. These are your family members. Now, just as bad as that, the average income for folks who manage managed to keep their job, or if they got a new one, fell off a cliff. Wages dropped as much as 40% during that time. Let's say you're making $60,000 a year. Think about the impact on your life if 2 years from now, you're only making $36,000. That's the situation Darrow, this super ordinary American, found himself in at the time. And that's precisely the moment that he decided to stop being ordinary. What does an ordinary person do when they lose their job? They immediately try to go out and get a new one, even if it means a 20, 30, 40% pay cut. What else can you do? Well, if you're Charles Darrow, what you do is you start playing games. Actually, Darrow didn't just play games, he started making up his own games. And the game he liked the most was his own take on an obscure landlord board game. Now, he took the game that was out there and he added some features to it. He added things like jail and a chance card, and he named most of the properties in the game after streets in his favorite town, Atlantic City. So by 1933, he had this game that all of his friends and families loved playing with him. They couldn't be rich in the real world, so they thought, but they had a blast pretending to get rich in this board game. Darrow quickly saw commercial potential with this game, so he patented it and he tried to sell it to Parker Brothers, who was the biggest game maker at the time. Now, it made it all the way up to the approvals committee there, but after reviewing it, they sent back a list of 52 reasons why it was a dumb game that they could never sell. Now, I've had plenty of ideas rejected in the past, and when I get rejected, clients are usually polite enough to just say no thanks, or maybe give me 1 or 2 reasons they don't think that project idea is good. If I got a list of 52 reasons my idea was dumb, well, actually, I'm probably stubborn enough I'd do exactly what Charles Darrow did. He started making the game himself. Now, he convinced a local store to put his handmade version on their shelves for the Christmas season in 1934, depths of the Great Depression. His first run of 500 games sold out instantly. So he handmade another 5,000 games, and those sold out just as quickly. Now, by that time, Parker Brothers realized they had made a huge mistake, so they went back and they licensed the game from Darrow. In 1935, just at the peak of the Great Depression, Parker Brothers sold 250,000 sets of Darrow's game. The game, as I'm sure you've guessed, was Monopoly, and the sales just kept going up from there. That year, 1935, at the age of 46, Charles Darrow retired as a millionaire. That's even more impressive when you consider that $1 million in 1935 is about the same as $23 million today. And look, Darrow was not the only man to make a fortune during the Great Depression. Michael Cullen came up with the idea for the first warehouse-sized grocery store in 1930. His King Cullen store in Queens, New York was the world's first supermarket, made him another Depression millionaire. There was a North Carolina man named Vernon Rudolph. He had the best donut of his life on a trip to New Orleans, so he convinced that chef to sell him his secret donut recipe. Well, with just that recipe, he went home to Winston-Salem, launched a small shop called Krispy Kreme. That store also quickly made him a Depression millionaire. In 1904, there was a man named King Camp Gillette. King patented the really first disposable safety razor. His razor gained some popularity from American troops in World War I, but back home, he really struggled to get the idea off the ground. Now, when the economy collapsed, he made what seemed to everyone like a crazy decision. He started giving away his razors, but only the first one. So he became a Depression millionaire from millions of these free customers when they came back to buy replacement blades over and over again. See, it's not that opportunities to make money go away during economic crashes. It's just that the opportunities look very different than they did before. And the thing is, people are generally linear thinkers. If we have a strategy that's worked for years, but it all of a sudden stops working, most people will just continue to bash their heads into a wall, trying the same thing over and over, long past the time it's reasonable to give up and move on. And the sad thing is, most people eventually just give up. They think, for example, it's impossible to make money at all because the way they used to make money doesn't work anymore. But the smart people who can pivot can rake in piles of cash long before the rest of the world catches up to what they're doing. Now, what did all these guys do to make such tremendous wealth? Think about it. They made a conscious decision to not be ordinary. When the ordinary thing to do was panic, to give in to fear, they had the foresight to act radically differently. Now, you know what would make you extraordinary? If you click that thumbs up button and subscribe to this channel. That's the kind of attention that really helps me and it keeps me making videos like these for you. But what does any of this have to do with freelancers and freelancing? Well, freelancing is the most flexible career path you can choose. As freelancers, we have the ability to pivot our entire business almost on a dime. Look, you have a set of skills as a freelancer. Your client has a set of needs. The better you get at discovering and fulfilling the client's needs, the more money you can make. The problem is, when the economy crashes, the clients very quickly develop a totally new set of needs. Yet most freelancers have a hard time adjusting to the new situation, to these new needs. They want to keep doing the same types of projects, the same things they've been doing. So an ordinary freelancer's income drops right along with the economy. But smart freelancers follow the old old Wayne Gretzky motto. They don't skate to where the puck is, they skate to where it's going to be. So how do you pivot your career when the economy is in the crapper? The first thing you have to do is recognize the shift in mass psychology. Both ideas and emotions can be contagious. Now, for the past decade, a lot of consumers have had a more or less optimistic outlook on the economy. Now, obviously, there are some exceptions with Zoomers and Millennials who are just crippled by debt and student loans. Now, for them, it's been obvious that the economy is broken and has been broken for a long time. But Gen Xers and Boomers, who honestly are the people who do the bulk of the consumer spending and investing, they've just been blindly optimistic. Now, when the economy formally tanks, even those generations will become incredibly pessimistic. And that emotion, that fear, is going to spread through the economy and people will start acting on it. Now, when consumers start acting out of fear, so do the businesses who hire freelancers. That doesn't mean the opportunities go away, but it means they change. People start shifting their purchases away from things like low-end luxury items, social, environmental causes, fun gadgets, electronics, things like that. Instead, they shift their purchases to be more fear-based activities. So stocking up on bulk supplies, so-called crash-proof investments like gold and silver, a lot of comforts and distractions like cheap food, alcohol, games, cheap entertainment. Now, as a freelancer, you can benefit by switching your focus from projects that consumers want when they're optimistic to these fear-based products. Now, depending on your particular skill, you can focus on working with necessary service providers. By that, I mean plumbers, electricians, roofers, hospitals. These are the type of businesses that are needed no matter what the economy is doing. They're not going away. Another way to make your freelance business recession or depression proof, focus on ways to save your clients money. For example, if you can help implement AI-based systems that can replace some of the workers that had to get laid off, you're going to become indispensable to those companies because you're basically replacing an entire workforce. Now, I did a presentation recently to my paid coaching students on how to create a 5-step plan to pivot towards a bad economy and make more money than ever before. But if I had to pull out one point to generalize, it would be that you need to really understand the shift in the mass psychology that happens during bad economies, and you have to adjust accordingly. Now, the one thing that doesn't change during economic crash is your need to look like a top-tier professional, which is why I want to give you the 5 free tools to make even brand new freelancers look like seasoned pros. You can get these tools at henrybing.co/free tools, and of course, the link is in the description. All right, catch you in the next one.